Reef once saved my life. But war leaves scars, and sometimes survival feels like an accident. He hadn't stepped in, and maybe that's why he isn't alive anymore. I've spent my whole life trying to put criminals behind bars, believing justice could make a difference. For years, everyone thought they knew why Pauley Perrette left acting. The public story was simple. She wanted a quieter life away from the spotlight. But leaked documents later revealed something very different. They showed disturbing details. Accusations of assault, unsafe working conditions, and even a co-star who scared her so badly that she needed therapy just to keep going. The network, CBS, believed their settlement would silence the issue forever. But now, at 56 years old, Pauley is finally ready to reveal the truth about her last painful years on set. Pauley Perrette was born on March 27, 1969, in New Orleans. Her childhood, however, was far from stable. Her father worked on the railroads, which meant the family was constantly moving. By the time she was a teenager, Pauley had already lived in 14 different states. She never stayed anywhere long enough to feel like she belonged. Yet, this constant uprooting taught her important skills. How to adapt quickly, how to blend in, and how to read people almost instantly. Even though she was born in Louisiana, Pauley often said Alabama felt most like home. Growing up across the South shaped her into someone resilient and adaptable, traits that would later help her survive the unpredictable world of Hollywood. Before anyone knew her as Abby from television, Pauley was already fascinated by crime and justice. As a child, while other kids read fairy tales or watched cartoons, she was drawn to real stories about criminals and the science behind catching them. She dreamed of different futures, being in a rock band, working with animals, or even joining the FBI. Unlike most children, she meant every word. After high school, she studied criminal justice and earned degrees in sociology, psychology, and criminology. She didn't stop there. She moved to New York to pursue a master's degree at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. What drove her wasn't a hunger for fame or wealth. She was deeply curious about one haunting question. Why do some people hurt others without regret? That question stayed with her for years. While she was in Atlanta during the 1980s, something happened that changed her forever. She was violently mugged, and though the details remain private, the experience left a deep mark on her. Instead of pushing the trauma away, she used it as motivation. It became the fuel behind her desire to understand crime and to speak up for victims. She knew firsthand what it felt like to be powerless, and from then on, she devoted part of her life to giving others a voice. Her college years were far from ordinary. Pauley studied hard, but she also worked just as hard outside of school to survive. In Georgia, she focused on criminal justice, keeping her grades strong. Later, when she moved to New York, survival became even tougher. She bartended at underground clubs, blending in with the city's wild nightlife while wearing a mohawk and combat boots. She handed out flyers on roller skates, cooked meals on dinner cruise boats, and took any job she could find just to afford school. None of it was glamorous, but she later admitted those experiences gave her an advantage. She wasn't only reading about human behavior in textbooks, she was living around it every day. That combination of academic study and real-life experience became an unexpected training ground for acting, even though acting wasn't her original goal. Pauley got her first tattoo when she was just 15 years old. For a girl raised in the conservative South, where church rules were strict and movies or television were barely allowed, this was shocking. Outwardly, she looked like the perfect Southern child, blonde hair, neat pigtails, polite and well-behaved. But inside, she felt different. The tattoos became her way of showing the world that she refused to follow rules set for her by others. Over time, she collected around 20 tattoos, each one representing a piece of her identity. She turned her body into a living canvas that rebelled against the expectations she grew up with. By the time she made it to Hollywood in the 1990s, she only had $71 to her name. She had just come from New York, where she had been bartending and doing whatever she could to survive. In Los Angeles, things weren't any easier. She slept on friends' floors and picked up whatever jobs she could get, including voiceover work for a phone-in music service just to pay rent. Acting wasn't something she had chased her whole life. It happened almost by accident, shaped by the twists and turns of survival. Acting was never part of Pauley Perrette's original plan. She only stumbled into it while trying to make enough money to survive. Her dream had always been criminology, but that path didn't pay the bills. At one of her lowest points, she was walking dogs along Sunset Boulevard for just $5 a day. It wasn't glamorous work, but it changed her life in a surprising way. One of those dogs, a pit bull she rescued from the street, became her beloved Cece. That dog wasn't just a pet. Cece became part of Pauley's identity and story. Years later, when she clashed with a co-star over his aggressive dog, the memory of Cece made the conflict even more personal. Her love for animals began during those hard times walking dogs, and it never left her. Since then, she has supported countless animal rescue groups and dedicated herself to protecting animals in need. Her first real break into television didn't come from a big audition or an agent. It came from pure chance. She was sitting in a coffee shop when she overheard someone talking about a casting call for the Drew Carey show. She decided to take a chance, and it paid off. That overheard conversation led to her landing a small recurring role as an extra named Darcy. She appeared in 4 episodes across 2 years. It wasn't a lead role, but it opened doors. From there, she slowly began building her resume with appearances on shows like Frasier and Murder One. Each part, no matter how small, was a stepping stone that brought her closer to her breakthrough. In 2000, she landed a minor role in the movie Almost Famous, playing a radio DJ named Alice Wisdom. Though it wasn't a large part, it gave her the chance to work with respected names like Philip Seymour Hoffman and director Cameron Crowe. A few years before that, she had starred in a small independent film called The Price of Kissing. Neither role made her a household name, but they gave her valuable experience. Almost Famous didn't earn much money at the box office, but it later became a cult classic. Pauley's presence in those early projects showed she had natural range and talent long before she found fame on NCIS. Everything changed in 2003. When Pauley walked into her NCIS audition, she wasn't dressed like the character that would make her famous. She wore baggy Levi's jeans, sneakers, and a plain white t-shirt. Her natural blonde hair looked nothing like the gothic Abby Sciuto fans would come to know. But as soon as she entered the room, creator Don Bellisario reportedly pointed and said, "That's her." Her friend Kevin Lawson later confirmed that Pauley didn't need to force anything during that audition. Her high energy, fast-talking warmth, and love for hugging people were completely natural. Abby wasn't just a character she played. Abby was Pauley being herself. The character quickly became the heart of the show. While CBS never released official data comparing Abby's popularity to other cast members, fans made it obvious. Abby was a favorite. Her role grew far beyond what the writers had originally imagined. By the time she left in 2018, Pauley had appeared in every single episode from the very start. No other actor on the cast matched that record. One of the most surprising parts of Abby's legacy wasn't even Pauley. It was a toy. On set, a purple stuffed hippo named Bert became more famous than anyone expected. Bert made a farting noise when squeezed, and what began as a silly prop turned into a running joke. Cast and crew loved it so much that producers had to lock Bert away between shoots to stop people from stealing it. The toy appeared in multiple episodes, always adding comic relief in tense situations. Fans didn't remember Abby just for her outfits or her catchphrases. It was small quirky touches like Bert that made her unforgettable. Behind the cameras, Pauley worked hard to make Abby believable. She treated Abby's job as a forensic scientist with respect. In fact, by the 3rd episode of the series, titled Sea Dog, which aired in October 2003, it was already clear Abby knew her field well. That realism wasn't by accident. Pauley Perrette didn't want Abby Sciuto to feel like just another television character. To make the role real, she worked directly with forensic experts and studied the science herself. She learned how DNA analysis worked, studied ballistics, and even picked up proper lab protocols. She wasn't only memorizing lines, she understood what they meant. That effort made Abby believable, as if she could walk into an actual NCIS laboratory and start working alongside real investigators. Pauley's heart didn't stop at the show. She poured her energy into causes that mattered to her. One of the most important was helping military veterans. She partnered with American Humane's Pups for Patriots program, which provides service dogs to veterans struggling with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. These highly trained dogs can cost up to $30,000 each, but Pauley believed deeply in the mission and gave her time and voice to support it. More than 160 veterans were eventually paired with service dogs through the program, giving them not only support but also a renewed sense of dignity and independence. This cause reflected Abby's respect for service members on screen, but for Pauley it was very real. NCIS itself became a television phenomenon. The show's popularity skyrocketed in the season's 7 finale, which drew in more than 20 million viewers in the United States. That single episode even beat American Idol in ratings, a rare accomplishment at the time. The show's viewership grew by 25% in the 18 to 49 age group compared to the previous year, jumping from 14.9 million to 17.6 million weekly viewers. This wasn't just another finale. It was the moment NCIS officially became the #1 scripted drama in America, a position it held on to for years. One of the strangest but most successful marketing ideas came from Abby's signature drink, CAF Pow. Originally, producers wanted Abby to be hooked on caffeine pills, but showing pills on TV wasn't a good idea. Instead, they turned it into a bright red energy drink. That oversized cup quickly became iconic. Fans loved it, and 7-Eleven even launched a special promotion that boosted national energy drink sales by 14%. They released limited edition holiday-themed CAF Pow cups that fans rushed to collect. What most viewers never knew, though, was that Pauley herself never drank it. Her famous red cups were always filled with cranberry juice. Pauley also pushed herself far beyond her comfort zone for the role. She struggled with severe claustrophobia, but she never asked for a body double, even when filming inside small morgue sets that made her panic. In one episode, Bête Noire, she had to film a tense hostage scene in an enclosed space. Despite feeling like the walls were closing in, she powered through and stayed completely in character. For the audience, it looked effortless, but behind the scenes, it took incredible strength. For Pauley, it was never about pretending to be brave. It was about refusing to let fear interfere with her performance. During her years on NCIS, she also had a creative secret. Under the name P, she created a webcomic called Lab Babble. The comic followed Abby's quirky lab adventures, complete with her humor, her science, and even Bert the farting hippo. At first, no one knew Pauley was behind it. Fans eventually figured it out, but the biggest surprise wasn't the comic itself. It was what she did with the money. Every cent of advertising revenue was donated to animal shelters across the country. It was a quiet act of kindness that she never publicized for credit. Her work and popularity didn't go unnoticed. In 2011, Guinness World Records named Pauley Perrette the most popular TV crime drama actress in the world. The award wasn't based only on ratings. It came from something called the Q score, which measured how much audiences genuinely liked her as a person, not just her character. She even ranked higher than actresses from hit shows like CSI and Law and Order. At the time, NCIS was drawing an average of more than 18 million viewers per episode. But what set her apart wasn't the goth outfits or the scientific jargon. It was the way she made people care. Then, in October 2016, everything changed on the set of NCIS. Mark Harmon, her longtime co-star, brought his rescue pit bull Dave to the studio as he often did. He had brought Dave many times before without any problems. But on that day, something went terribly wrong. The incident with Mark Harmon's dog changed everything on the NCIS set. One day, his rescue pit bull Dave bit a crew member so badly that the injury required 15 stitches. Production was shut down for 2 hours. And the wound left behind more than just physical scars. It also created fear and unease among the people working there. Even Harmon's attorney later admitted that he had warned him about the risks of bringing the dog back to set. Despite the warnings, Dave returned. What had once been a safe, controlled work environment now carried an undercurrent of tension. For Pauley Perrette, the attack was a turning point. She demanded that CBS never allow Dave near the set again. She was shaken and expected the network to protect the crew. But when CBS allowed the dog back, Pauley was furious. As a result, she had a new clause added to her season 15 contract that stated she would never again share a scene with Harmon. For fans, this decision played out like a mystery. On screen, Abby and Gibbs were never shown together anymore, though no explanation was given. Behind the scenes, the production had to completely reorganize itself. Their scenes were filmed on different days, often with separate crews. This made filming more expensive and complicated. By her final episode, watched by 15 million people, she and Harmon weren't even in the same building. Editors had to carefully cut the footage together to create the illusion of connection where none actually existed. Then, in June 2019, Pauley broke her silence publicly. At 6 o'clock in the morning, she posted a tweet that shook the internet. In it, she said she was terrified of Mark Harmon and suffered nightmares of him attacking her. She made it clear she would never return to NCIS. These words weren't filtered through an interview or second-hand report. They came directly from her, raw and honest. Fans flooded social media. Entertainment websites crashed under the traffic as people tried to piece together what she meant. For years, Harmon had been seen as the calm, fatherly figure of the show. Pauley's words cracked that image. Harmon remained silent, which for many people only made her accusations feel more believable. What most viewers didn't know was that Pauley had already filed 3 separate safety complaints with CBS's HR department before she left. These weren't simple disagreements or contract disputes. They were formal reports about safety and workplace conditions. CBS later confirmed that she had raised concerns more than a year before her departure. In 2018, she tweeted that she had endured multiple physical assaults, hinting that she was pressured into silence and accusing a powerful machine of spreading lies about her exit. She admitted she felt unsafe at work and needed therapy afterward. Filing 3 reports showed she had tried to go through the proper channels. It also made clear that CBS had multiple opportunities to act more decisively, but failed to do so. The situation became so serious that Pauley eventually hired a private investigator. She wasn't just venting frustration, she was building a case. The investigator documented safety violations on the NCIS set, and Pauley used that evidence to push CBS into a private settlement. Multiple sources reported that CBS paid her between $5 and $9 million. This wasn't about a bad script, a salary cut, or creative differences. It was about safety, accountability, and trust being broken. The settlement came with a strict non-disclosure agreement designed to bury the controversy. But the timing made it impossible for CBS to hide. The network was already under public scrutiny for misconduct cases. Around that same period, CBS had paid $9.5 million to actress Eliza Dushku after she filed harassment claims on another show. The settlement money Pauley received showed just how serious her case had been. It suggested that if the full story ever came out, it could have badly damaged CBS's reputation and even Mark Harmon's career. For a while, Pauley stepped away from television completely. But 2 years later, she decided to try a comeback. In April 2020, she returned with a new sitcom called Broke. At first, things looked promising. On its premiere night, more than 7 million people tuned in. But the excitement faded quickly. As the weeks went on, the ratings dropped. By the end of its 13-episode run, the audience had shrunk to just 3.6 million viewers. Among the key demographic of 18 to 49-year-olds, the show earned a rating of only 0.4, a number far below what networks consider sustainable. Critics weren't gentle either. They described the show as boring, predictable, and lacking direction. CBS had hoped Broke would be the beginning of Pauley's next chapter, but instead it was the end. After once being one of the biggest stars on primetime television, her return ended quietly with low ratings and harsh reviews. Just 2 months after the cancellation, Pauley made her final decision public. On July 7, 2020, she tweeted a short message, "I'm free," in bright rainbow colors. It wasn't just a cheerful update. It was her official retirement from acting. She wrote that she now only answered to God, animals, and plants, and that her rescue dogs were the only judges she cared about. After more than 25 years of acting and over 350 episodes of NCIS alone, she was done for good. There were no farewell interviews, no talk shows, and no drawn-out goodbye tour, just one bold statement that shut the door completely. What surprised many people was what happened afterward. Even in retirement, Pauley was still offered roles on major shows like The Good Doctor and Law & Order, SVU. Guest roles like these can pay anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 per episode, and with her reputation, they would have been easy for her to land. But Pauley turned them all down. Her choice made it clear, this wasn't about money or fame anymore. It was about peace, healing, and protecting her well-being. Then, on the morning of September 2, 2021, her life took another frightening turn. Pauley woke up and immediately sensed something was wrong. The entire right side of her body was numb. At first, she brushed it off, thinking she had slept in a strange position. But the feeling didn't return. When she touched her own cheek with her finger, it felt like she was touching someone else's face. Even the weight of her laptop resting on her legs meant nothing. Her skin couldn't feel it. Panic set in. She called her doctor, who told her not to wait. Within minutes, she was rushed to the emergency room. There, the doctors confirmed her worst fear. At just 53 years old, she was having a massive ischemic stroke. For 36 hours, she lost her voice completely. She couldn't speak at all. When her speech finally came back, her first words weren't dramatic. They were sarcastic, almost humorous. "Dude, seriously?" But behind that moment was something terrifying. Her doctors hadn't expected her to live past 5 p.m. that day. The stroke was that severe. Her recovery was long and exhausting. She had to go through months of therapy to regain her speech and motor skills. But she survived. Part of what saved her wasn't just medical care. It was Rosie, her rescue dog. While the stroke was happening, Rosie wouldn't stop pawing at her, refusing to let her drift into dangerous silence. That constant nudging woke her up just in time. In a stroke, every minute matters, and Rosie bought her those precious minutes that meant the difference between life and death. Pauley had always been passionate about rescuing animals. Over the years, she adopted several dogs and often spoke about how much they meant to her. But this moment was different. The dog she had once saved ended up saving her in return. That moment with Rosie made Pauley realize that her bond with animals went far beyond simple companionship. It was about survival. From then on, her devotion to rescuing animals became even deeper. It wasn't just about giving them homes. It was about gratitude, about a connection she described as almost spiritual. Her sense of spirituality grew even stronger after the stroke. She began searching for peace in quiet places, far away from Hollywood. Twice a year, she started visiting a Benedictine monastery in Big Sur. The monks there never tried to convert her or push her into their way of belief. Instead, they simply taught her how to be still, how to sit in silence, breathe slowly, and listen. In those quiet moments, she created her own prayer, a short line she repeated every day. "Thank you for everything, and forgive me for everything." When she prayed, she sometimes felt answers come to her, not in loud voices or dramatic visions, but in soft, simple whispers. Words like trust or not now would rise in her heart. For Pauley, this wasn't the kind of faith she grew up with. Back then, she didn't even know how to pray. But now, her talks with God felt like check-ins with a trusted friend. These retreats didn't just help her heal from the stroke. They also gave her strength to process years of pain, including past abuse and a brutal attack in 2015 that had left her shaken and terrified. Even while dealing with her own struggles, Pauley kept giving to others. She became an executive producer for a documentary called Studio One Forever, a project that meant a lot to her. The film told the story of Studio One, the first gay disco in America, which operated in West Hollywood from 1974 to 1994. For many in the LGBTQ community, Studio One was more than just a nightclub. It was a safe place, a space where people could dance, celebrate, and find each other during a time when the AIDS crisis created fear and isolation. The documentary included stories from celebrities like Bruce Vilanch and Chita Rivera, but Pauley's reason for supporting the project was simple. She wanted people to remember. She wanted the voices of that community to be heard and honored. The film premiered at the 2023 Outfest LA Film Festival, turning into a celebration of resilience, history, and love. Some of Pauley's most meaningful acts of kindness, however, never made headlines. In 2015, she quietly helped a young cancer patient named Christina Flores. Christina was a huge NCIS fan whose dream was to meet Abby Sciuto. Thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, that dream came true. Pauley and Christina spent the day together, even getting matching temporary tattoos. Just weeks later, Christina passed away. What no one knew at the time was that Pauley had secretly paid for Christina's entire funeral and covered the travel expenses for her family. She never spoke about it publicly. The only reason it became known was because Christina's aunt posted a tweet about it, which was later deleted. Pauley never commented. She didn't need to. She had already honored the little girl's strength in the quietest, most meaningful way. Hollywood kept reaching out to her with big offers, but Pauley always stayed true to her values. In 2007, Playboy magazine offered her $750,000 to pose. She said no. In 2013, they returned with an even bigger offer, nearly $1 million. She turned it down again. At the time, NCIS was one of the most watched shows on television, with more than 19 million weekly viewers, and Playboy assumed she'd accept. But Pauley refused. She didn't want to be part of something that reduced women to objects. She knew young fans were looking up to her, and she wanted to send a different message. In a 2014 interview with TV Guide, she explained that the offers never tempted her, not even for a moment. She believed that real strength could be shown in other ways, and she stayed loyal to that belief, even when it meant walking away from huge amounts of money. Then came one of the biggest surprises of her life story. In 2023, her will was leaked during a probate filing in Los Angeles. The documents revealed that her estate was worth more than $22 million. Not a single dollar was left to family or friends. Instead, she had arranged for all of it to go to two causes closest to her heart: no-kill animal shelters and the Innocence Project, which helps free people who were wrongfully convicted. Her lawyer confirmed that she wanted to avoid any inheritance drama and instead leave behind a legacy that matched her values. She had spent years rescuing animals, once saving as many as 12 dogs in a single year, so her decision wasn't surprising to those who knew her best. Her will carefully divided the money: 60% for animal shelters and 40% for the Innocence Project. She even left one final personal request. After her death, she wanted her ashes split into two parts. Half would be scattered near a dog park. The other half would be placed at the rescue center where she had found her very first dog.